I'll tell you how my strange romance began, but first a little backstory. Emily and I met at a mutual company. I immediately paid attention to her. The other girls in her presence looked like 3 out of 10. It wasn't just Emily's looks I fell in love with her, because she was easy and pleasant to be around. Although I will not hide that appearance plays an important role for me. I cannot communicate with an unattractive person, in a word. Quite quickly, we found a common language and topics for conversation. And our characters were similar. Both of us are calm, reasonable, not prone to drama. We started dating. But here everything was like everyone else: dates in cafes, walks in the park, long phone conversations. We decided to live together, but Emily put a condition that we could move in only after meeting her mom. She said she couldn't make that decision without her mom's consent. I was a little surprised. Why start a life together if it doesn't matter to you? Still, I agreed to meet her mom, even though I felt like a complete fool, like a show dog. But I had no choice, so I showered, dressed, and even cut my hair. We agreed to meet her mom on neutral ground at a restaurant. I even bought a couple carnations to present a modest bouquet. I was the first to arrive. Emily was running late and called to ask me to order her mom a coffee and a couple pastries, saying she was on her way. Of course, I ordered both and sat at a table watching the other customers. My attention was caught by a young woman in a silver coat. I had no idea it was Emily's mom. The woman was chatting on the phone, laughing loudly and flipping her thick golden hair. Of course, I admired her from a distance. She had a great figure, fashionable, colorful clothes, and a pleasant face. I don't have the best eyesight, so I couldn't see her until she came closer. And when she did, I realized she was simply stunning. She confidently walked toward me, and I was stunned. Could this really be Emily's mom? What a surprise, she said, smiling and introducing herself. My name is Laura, she said in a pleasant voice. I could only mumble in response. I quickly pulled myself together and invited her to sit down. Laura smiled and asked me to relax, teasing me for blushing so much. I barely managed to keep my composure. She looked perfect, no older than 35. Of course, I looked like a complete fool. Emily's mom realized I was still in shock, and after a few minutes, the awkwardness passed. We chatted quite nicely. I don't even remember what we were talking about, just some nonsense. Then Emily called and said she was stuck at work and unfortunately wouldn't be able to join us. This didn't upset me in the slightest, quite the opposite. I'm not going to lie to myself, Emily was no match for her mother in terms of looks. Although they were similar, both slender, tall, with beautiful, seductive figures. It was just that Laura was much more striking and colorful. We had a great time. At the end of the evening, Laura even asked me to dance. I wasn't expecting it and tried to keep my distance. After all, she wasn't just a woman, but the mother of the girl I planned to live with. During the dance, she pressed herself against me and whispered in my ear, "How young and shy you are." I blushed again, which amused her. She seemed to enjoy teasing me, and I was both embarrassed and excited by this attention. Her confidence and charm were intoxicating, and I couldn't resist being drawn to her. The next time we met was a week later. Laura invited us to visit, promising us a delicious dinner. Emily had already told me that her mom liked me and was okay with us living together. The visit made me blush again, but the truth was that I wasn't attracted to Laura at all. I couldn't handle the attraction, even though I knew it was silly. After all, she was much older than me. But Laura wasn't shy about her age, and she was incredibly confident. Her confidence was unlike anything I'd encountered before, and it made her even more attractive. She conducted herself with such grace and confidence that she seemed almost untouchable. That evening, Emily seemed to get jealous. I was too engrossed in a conversation with her mom, who took it all in stride. We joked around a lot. The table was full of delicious food, and quiet music was playing in the background. I couldn't take my eyes off Laura's slender, so beautiful legs. Emily noticed this and threw indignant glances at me. Laura pretended not to notice, sitting gracefully cross-legged, her skin so smooth it drove me crazy. Her laughter filled the room, and it was clear she knew the effect she was having on me. I could feel my heartbeat speed up every time she looked at me, her eyes glittering mischievously. Laura seemed to enjoy the attention. She laughed softly, clearly realizing the effect she was having on me. Eventually, Emily grew tired of the tension and left abruptly, slamming the door. I started to follow her, but Laura stopped me, telling me that her daughter was testing me, wondering if I was a real man or just cocky. I decided to stay, angry at Emily's behavior. Laura poured me a drink, keeping her eyes on me, and I felt strangely excited. It was like she was challenging me, pushing me to see how far I would go. Laura poured me a drink and we visibly relaxed. "Do you like me, Adam?" she asked suddenly, inviting me to dance around the room. Of course, I immediately jumped up. Dancing with her so close, I was ecstatic. We kissed. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. I thought Emily was a fool for leaving. It was her own fault, and now she would have to deal with the consequences. Laura's lips were soft and her touch was electrifying. I had never experienced anything like that before, and I wanted more. From then on, Laura and I began meeting in secret, using any excuse we could find. Our kisses became more and more intense, though we never crossed the final line. I think she liked to play with me like a cat with a mouse. She loved my admiration, and I loved every minute of it. Emily remained unconcerned, though she occasionally cast questioning glances at me. I often wondered if she suspected anything. I caught her watching me, doubt in her eyes, but she never said anything. The mystery made everything that was going on all the more exciting, and I felt addicted to secret walks. One day I accidentally called Emily by her mother's name. She erupted with anger. "You called me Laura," she screamed. "Who do you mean, my mom?" I denied it, of course, brushing it off as nonsense. But all my thoughts were occupied with Laura. It was crazy to think I was in love with my girlfriend's mother, but I couldn't help it. Especially at night, I would toss and turn, imagining Laura next to me. Her smell, her touch, her smile, they haunted my dreams, and I couldn't get rid of it. It was like an obsession that I couldn't get rid of no matter how hard I tried. One day we were close to it. Laura came over for just a few minutes and we kissed in the hallway. At that very moment, Emily needed to get something from the kitchen, and she almost caught us. The exertion made me sweat, but she didn't notice anything. Laura looked as worried as I did. Danger seemed to heighten all the senses. My pulse quickened, and I realized that part of the thrill was the fear of being caught. Laura didn't seem to miss the opportunity either. Her eyes glistened with excitement when we pulled away just in time. We continued our secret affair, adding a touch of intrigue to my otherwise sedate life. This strange relationship with Emily's mother was like a spicy seasoning to a bland meal without her. Life seemed boring. Laura seemed to be experiencing the same high. Unfortunately, I knew that I was just entertainment to her. I wasn't sure if she would ever cross that final line, but I wanted her to cross it. Time would tell. Every time we met, I could feel the tension building, the unspoken promise of something more. But Laura was careful not to let it go too far. The only problem was that Emily was becoming increasingly jealous. She began to notice the way I looked at her mother, the way my eyes followed Laura when she moved. Emily became more possessive, often insisting that we spend more time alone together. I tried to act normal, but it was difficult. My thoughts were constantly preoccupied with Laura, and it was getting harder and harder to hide it. I realized that something was going to happen sooner or later. The tension was becoming unbearable, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep up this farce. One evening, Emily asked me bluntly. "You've been distant lately," she said, her eyes full of suspicion. "Is there something you're not telling me?" I denied it, but I could see she wasn't convinced. She watched me carefully, her eyes searching for any hint of deception. It was exhausting, and I began to question whether it was all worth it. But once I saw Laura, all my doubts vanished. She had a way of making me forget about everything in the world, of making me feel alive in a way I'd never felt before. Laura and I continued to meet in secret, but the risks were increasing. Emily was becoming more and more vigilant, and it was only a matter of time before she found out. I didn't know what I would do if that happened. The thought of losing Laura was unbearable, but I also realized that I couldn't continue to hurt Emily. It was a confusing situation from which there seemed to be no way out, and yet I couldn't stop. The pull toward Laura was too strong, and I was powerless to resist it. I often wondered how Laura really felt. Was I just a game to her, or did she feel something more? Sometimes in those quiet moments when we were alone, I thought I saw something in her eyes, something deeper, something real. But she never talked about it, and neither did I. We both knew what we were risking, and neither of us wanted to take that final step. It was like we were both waiting for something to happen that would make us put our hands down. In the meantime, we continued our dangerous game, savoring every stolen moment, every secret touch, knowing it couldn't last forever. The only problem was that Emily was growing increasingly jealous, and I could feel the walls closing in. The thrill of the affair was slowly turning into a burden, and I didn't know how much longer I could take it. But for now, I was willing to endure anything to hold on to these fleeting moments with Laura, even if it meant risking everything.